And our final lightning talk of the day is Dale from Shopify.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Dale, and I work at Shopify on the production engineering team. And I just want to talk a little bit about burnout and just some of the things we've done to try to reduce just how common burnout is in our industry. Being responsible for incident response, being responsible for large production systems, and being on call is, I think, a huge part that contributes to the stress that results in burnout. So I just want to share a little bit about 3 things we've done, focusing in on the on-call aspect to help improve the health of our team. So first of all, how many people in the room are on call? I would expect it to be everyone. Yeah. And second question is, how many of you have been woken up or have had your evening disrupted in the past month? Past month? Okay. I was last woken up 9 days ago, so relatively recently for me as well. Cool. So talking to the right audience, I think all of you can play your part at improving the health where you work. So where were we? I just want to start going back a little bit in time. So where were we about 3 years ago? So 3 years ago, we had a pretty typical DevOps-focused operations team of 12. At that time, we were responsible for about 1,000 servers, getting up to 200 engineers total, and then dozens of services. And at that time, only about maybe 5 to 10 deploys a day. And on-call, the operations team that I was a part of was the primary on-call, responsible for responding to all incidents across the infrastructure, and we were supported by a single dev on-call rotation out of that group of 175 engineers. So I guess what were the problems with this, right? So the 3 kind of biggest problems were just the heavy toil workload we had, right? So this is all about just the sheer amount of interrupt-driven work, repeatable manual tasks that were really taken away from any ability to work on long-term improvements and automation. This also ended up leading to some pretty serious incidents for us. So we get DDoS attacks regularly, and just not having the time to build the automation, to build the systems, just resulted in repeated incidents and repeated downtime. And this ultimately leads to lower job satisfaction when everything feels like it's broken, you feel powerless to do anything about it. That has a huge impact on your job satisfaction and therefore your job health. The other thing was just the breadth of knowledge. So we were kind of lying to ourselves. With that team of 12, we had some people that might know MySQL very well, but they were also responsible for something far away like Nginx, right? And so we had this kind of implicit on-call policy where if something happened to MySQL, you knew that one of the 2 database knowledgeable people were going to get paged, right? But the pager rotation showed that they were on call only once in every 6 weeks, when in reality they're on call every other week, right? So that's a serious problem that we had. And finally, we ended up with the rest of the engineering team, 175 people versus 12, ending up dumping some stuff on the team, and it wasn't really their fault. We couldn't keep up with the needs they had. So they would start forming new teams, one called the performance team, one called the future stack team, and they would build systems, but since they didn't have that on-call culture, they would hand it over to us for operationalizing it, and again, we would just have to handle even more breadth. So just going to quickly run through 3 things we did. So first of all, fix the team composition. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Some great talks here. Caesar gave a brief overview of some of the things that go into this. Some great talks from some people at Facebook and Google over the years, and a lot about what this conference is about. But we really focused on getting a better ratio of systems folks to software engineers. Again, this was about helping us make progress towards that toil reduction and the long-term improvements around automation and resiliency. And then reducing the breadth of knowledge required, right? So making sure we had deep experts in each area who could also keep growing their expertise. And again, fix that implicit on-call and change it to an explicit rotation where they were supported by a full team of people that could take the time to actually understand the database storage layer to the depth we needed them to understand it. The second thing was just expecting more from that other group of people, that 175 people. So rather than have one on-call schedule there, move to service service-specific schedules. And so, rather than have them, dump these services over to us for operations, really just enforcing that they need to own it. So at this point in time, we've now moved from those 2 on-call rotations to over 40 service-specific, area-specific on-call schedules. And I think, some people often ask, what about devs who don't want to go on call, or, it wasn't in their interview process or wasn't in their job description? A lot of people here, you just hear them kind of, laugh it off and say, well, like, if you're not going to be, if you're not willing to stand behind your service, then, like, neither am I. And I think that's part of the conversation, but I think the second part, and I think this slide is really what I really want to focus on, is recognizing the burden of on-call. And so we looked at, what could we do? So could we do pager pay? Could we do incident pay? What could we do? And at the end of the day, we tried to kind of come up with the simplest thing that really communicated that we cared about the health and well-being of our people. And so the first thing we did was we committed to 6-person on-call teams. And back then, we weren't actually able to do this. But again, this was kind of about setting that desired outcome for the future and showing people that we know that it's hard right now, but we're committed to making it better in the future. And then the second one, which kind of was our solution to, the concept of pager pay or time back, was for every week of on-call, and we work primarily on 1 week schedules, although we leave it up to our teams to kind of determine their own implementation of that. After a week of on-call, go ahead and take the following Friday off. And this is a really small thing for us, but it's really about, again, we're taking the time from people, from their families, from their extracurricular activities, and this is a way to just let them let us show that we care and give them some time back. And the final thing is a new thing that Leah and her team rolled out recently is even with our bots, like can we make them a little bit more empathetic? So now, when you're incident manager on call and you have an incident lasting more than an hour, we put this into our global IMOC channel, and everybody else has noticed. You get some people that kind of come and help you out, and it's a lot easier to deal with that pressure when you feel kind of this level of support in your organization. And I should have said on that last thing, I'm not a labor lawyer or anything, so you might want to check if there's any kind of things that apply where maybe you have to do pager pay or something for overtime. So in terms of results, we saw a team that really had less burnout, reported feeling healthier, and really allowed us to kind of keep our momentum growing as the production engineering organization. And ultimately, what this really gave us time to was work on this feedback loop that we focus on. So detecting problems, correcting them with our incident response process, reflecting through RCAs and blameless postmortems, and then protecting through with focusing on how do we actually take the results of those RCAs and put them into practice so that we can kind of improve the resiliency of the system over time. So I really just want to encourage that, everyone here, whether you're a manager, team member, tech lead, it's your job to kind of raise the signal inside your organization and make people aware of the sacrifices people are making. Myself as a manager, I can sometimes at times lose sight of how noisy a certain rotation is or whatever, right? So it's really up to you to speak up. And I think we have a little bit of a hero culture problem as well, where people don't want to speak up and say, hey, this is really affecting my life, or I have these circumstances going on at home, and this is just making it really rough. If you say something, people in your organization are there to help, and if they're not, you should go find a job somewhere else. So with that, if you want to come talk about this or any other stuff that we're working on, come find us in the hall out there. Thanks.
So a big thank you to all of our Lightning Talk speakers. We now have a scheduled break out there in the foyer, and then the final talk of the session. So thanks, everyone.